My parents uninvited me from my grandma's 65th because your sister's boyfriend doesn't like you. I said, okay, booked Paris with grandma, and posted photos the whole 2 weeks. Now my entire family is melting down because grandma changed her will in front of everyone and my sister's boyfriend bailed the same night. I'm 27F, my sister is 25F, our parents are mid-50s, and my grandma, Dad's mom, just turned 65. I'm single, live in a small apartment about 40 minutes away. My sister still lives at home with my parents, and her boyfriend practically lives there too. Grandma lives alone about 10 minutes from my parents' house, and I've always been the one who spends the most time with her. For context, my family dynamic is basically, my parents and sister orbit around each other, and I orbit around grandma. Growing up, I was the serious kid. Good grades, part-time jobs, boring hobbies. My sister, Mia, was the golden child. Pretty, social, cheerleading, always had some boy texting her. My parents never said favorite, but they didn't have to. If Mia wanted something, everyone pivoted. Grandma, I'll call her Rose, was the one who saw me. She's the kind of person who saves every drawing, every weird rock you hand her. When I was a kid and felt like the background character in my own house, I'd bike to her place. We'd drink tea, watch cooking shows, and she'd let me talk as long as I wanted. When I finally moved out at 23, it was actually closer to grandma's place than to my parents on purpose. I started taking her to her appointments, doing her grocery runs, helping with her online banking. Not because anyone asked me. My parents actually said, you don't have to play nurse. But I like being around her. Mia has always had opinions about this. You're acting like she's your mom, she'd say. And I'd go, well, someone has to drive her home after they dilate her eyes. And she'd roll her eyes and wander off. Anyway, last year, when grandma turned 64, we did a little family dinner at my parents' house. Nothing huge. I brought flowers and a photo book I'd made from old pictures I scanned from grandma's albums. She cried. At the end of the night, she squeezed my hand and said, you and me, 65 is going to be special, okay? So for the past year, I've had this in the back of my mind. I don't make a lot of money, but I got a small raise and started putting a bit aside each month. I had this vague idea, some kind of trip, even just a weekend somewhere nice. Something that was about her, not just another shared cake with half the family scrolling through their phones. Meanwhile, Mia started dating Jason, 29M. He's one of those guys who walks into a room and assumes he's the most important person there. Works in sales, talks loudly on speakerphone, calls my parents by their first names after like 3 weeks. My parents love him. He brings wine. He helps my dad with barbecue. He calls my mom second mom on Facebook. My grandma, polite as always, just calls him that boy who never stops talking. There's history here. Jason and I went to the same high school. We weren't friends, but he definitely was one of the guys who made jokes about quiet, weird girls. Nothing dramatic, just enough that I remembered his face and didn't enjoy seeing it at my parents' table. When he and Mia started dating, and I showed up to a family dinner, he did that fake surprise thing. Oh, you're that girl. You used to sit in the library at lunch, right? I said, yep, because the cafeteria smelled like Axe body spray and bad decisions. And he laughed like I'd said the funniest thing ever. After that, he'd always make little comments. Wow, still no boyfriend. You're so intense, no wonder you're single. You and your grandma are like a little old lady club. I shut it down a few times, but he'd chalk it up to jokes, and my parents would say, he's just teasing, don't be so sensitive. So, fast forward. Around March, my parents made a group chat. Grandma's 65th. They wanted to throw a big party at their house. My mom was talking balloon arches, a funny slideshow, and inviting half the extended family plus their friends. I suggested maybe asking Grandma what she wanted. They brushed that off with, we want it to be a surprise. I talked to Grandma separately. She told me, I don't need a circus. I just want to feel like someone actually wants to be with me, not just pass me around for photos. That stuck. In April, I started looking at flights. Every time I visited Grandma, she'd talk about the places she'd never gone. Paris was always at the top of the list. She'd taken French in high school and still sprinkled random words into conversation. I ran the numbers, watched for deals, and finally I was able to afford 2 economy tickets, a small Airbnb in a cheap area, and enough budget for museums and some restaurants. I booked it for the exact week of her birthday. 2 full weeks in France, travel days plus a buffer. I didn't tell anyone at first, just in case something fell through. I did tell Grandma in June, though, because I had to make sure she was okay walking a lot, climbing metro stairs, etc. When I told her, she covered her mouth, started crying, and kept saying, "No one has ever done anything like this for me." She immediately said, "We have to tell your parents, they'll worry," so I told my mom. Instant drama. "They were counting on you for the party," Mom said. "I didn't even know we'd set a date," I replied. "Well, we were thinking a big Sunday lunch on her actual birthday. Everyone together. She's going to be with me. In Paris." My mom did that thing where she goes quiet and then sighs like someone died. "So you're pulling her away from her family on her 65th? I said, "I am her family. I'm literally taking her on her dream trip." Dad eventually got on the phone and said, "Couldn't you just go another time? We already told people." I said, "Did you ask her what she wants?" "Because she said she wants this." That should have been the end of it. Grandma is a grown adult. But then Jason got involved. One night in July, my mom called and said, "Can we all talk about this Sunday dinner?" Jason had a good idea. I already knew I wasn't going to like it. We ended up on a video call. Me, my parents, Mia, and Jason popping his head into frame like some weird bonus DLC. Jason goes, "Look, I think it's sweet that you're taking her to Europe." Really? The way he said sweet made my skin crawl. But family milestones should be celebrated with, the whole family. Not just separate little side trips. I said, "It's not a side trip. It's her birthday." He smiled and said, "Right, but you'll be posting pictures, yeah? So it'll feel like we're all there." My parents nodded along like puppets. Then my mom said the line that started everything. "Listen, since Jason doesn't really feel comfortable around you." I literally laughed. "What?" Jason jumped in. "Nothing personal, you just always seem hostile. Negative. It brings the mood down. Your mom and dad want this to be a positive, drama-free event." My dad added, "We were thinking, maybe it's best if you don't come to the party. You'll have your time with her in Paris." I said, very calmly, "You're uninviting me from my own grandmother's 65th birthday because your daughter's boyfriend doesn't like my vibe?" My mom said, "Don't make it sound like that," which is always what people say when you repeat back exactly what they just did. Then she said, "We don't want tension. Jason is practically part of the family now, and your sister has been looking forward to this. Just let us do this for once without you rolling your eyes at everything." I was quiet for a second. Then I said, "Okay." Mia snapped, "Oh my God, here we go." And I cut her off. "No, seriously. Okay, you have your party. I'll be with Grandma in Paris. We'll stay out of your way. Problem solved." Jason looked surprised. I think he expected a fight. Instead, I just smiled and ended the call. To be clear, that hurt. A lot. I cried in my tiny kitchen for like half an hour. This woman basically raised my emotional self, and now I was being told I wasn't welcome at her milestone birthday, so a man she's known for a year could feel comfortable. But I wasn't going to fight for a chair at a table where people had just told me I was the problem. So yeah, I leaned into the Paris plan. I told Grandma what happened, very carefully, leaving out the direct quotes, and she got quiet in that dangerous way. Then she said, "If they want a party that badly, they can have it. I'll celebrate my life where I feel loved." We left 3 days before her birthday. The entire travel day, my parents were silent in the family chat. Mia posted some vague family is everything story with a picture of Jason and my parents at a restaurant. Grandma didn't even watch it. Paris was honestly amazing. Not glamorous, but real. We did all the cliches. Eiffel Tower, Louvre, pastries at random cafes. She walked slower than the crowds, so we stopped a lot. She'd put her hand on my arm and point at things like a little kid. Every morning, I'd take a photo of us somewhere new and post it on Instagram and Facebook. Nothing mean, just captions like, "Taking Grandma Rose to see the world for her 65th, and birthday breakfast in Paris for the birthday girl." Family members started commenting. "So beautiful. You're such a good granddaughter. Rose, you deserve this." My parents didn't comment. Mia didn't either. But I saw they watched every story. On her actual birthday, we woke up early, bought croissants and a little cake from a bakery, and I put a 65 candle in it that I'd packed from home. We sang happy birthday quietly in the Airbnb kitchen. She cried again. Meanwhile, my cousins were posting their own pictures from the big family party back home. I'm not going to lie, it looked sad. They had those foil 65 balloons, a store sheet cake with happy 65th rose, and blue icing, and like 12 people there, including my parents, Mia, Jason, my aunt and uncle, and a couple cousins' kids. In one photo, there's clearly a folding table with mismatched chairs and Jason doing a toast. The caption from my aunt was, "Family lunch for Aunt Rose's 65th. We miss you, Rose." Grandma saw it and quietly said, "I told them I wasn't coming." Apparently, right after we left, my parents tried to guilt her into postponing the Paris trip and doing lunch instead. She told them no. They went ahead and did the party without the birthday person because, in my mom's words later, we already bought the cake. So yeah, they had a party for her with a cake and a bunch of people, while the actual birthday girl was walking along the Seine with me eating crepes. Anyway, we came home 2 weeks later. Grandma was tired but happy, and I could see it all over her. She was lighter. A week after we got back, she called and asked me to drive her to my parents' house for a talk. I thought we were doing some kind of awkward post-trip recap. I was ready for drama about the photos. When we arrived, my parents, Mia, and Jason were all sitting at the dining table. There were papers on the table and a man I didn't know sitting there with a briefcase. Grandma walked in with her cane and her handbag and said, "Good, everyone is here." My mom looked confused. "Mom, what is this?" The man introduced himself as Grandma's lawyer. Legit lawyer, not a fake. I recognized the firm name. Grandma sat down, adjusted her glasses, and said, "We're updating my will. I wanted all of you to hear it together." You could feel the temperature drop in the room. My dad tried to joke, "Oh, Mom, don't be morbid." She held up her hand. "I am 65, not 16. I get to decide where my things go while I can still sign my own name." The lawyer started reading. I'm not going to repeat every detail, but the main part was this line. "The majority of my estate, including my house and savings, will go to the grandchild who chose to celebrate my 65th birthday with me." Then he read my full name. There was a beat of total silence. Mia looked at me like I had written the will. Jason's face went red. My mom started stammering. "Mom, what does that even mean? We threw you a party." Grandma turned her head slowly. "You threw yourselves a lunch. You uninvited my other granddaughter because your daughter's boyfriend doesn't like her. Then you tried to guilt me for going on the only trip I will probably ever take outside this country." Jason tried to jump in. "It wasn't like that." She cut him off. "You are a guest, young man. Please don't speak." I almost choked holding in a laugh. She went on, "I spent my birthday in Paris with the one person who has shown up for me consistently for years. Doctor visits, groceries, lonely holidays. She saved for months to do something kind. I decided that the person who celebrates my life will benefit from it when I'm gone." My mom started crying. My dad looked stunned. Mia said, "So she gets everything? For what? Taking you on a trip. You know she only did that to get in your will." That hurt. But before I could say anything, Grandma said, "If that's what you genuinely believe about your sister, that is your burden to carry, not mine." Then she added, "And no, she won't get everything. I've left sentimental items and small amounts of money for others. But the house and most of my savings go to her. She's the one who already acts like family." The lawyer finished, had Grandma sign, and notarized everything right there. My parents were too stunned to stop anything. When he left, the room exploded. My mom, "How could you blindside us like this?" Grandma, "How could you uninvite my granddaughter from my birthday like that?" My dad, "We thought we were protecting the peace." Grandma, "By choosing a boyfriend's comfort over your own daughter?" Jason tried one more time. "With all due respect, this seems like an emotional decision." Grandma looked at him and said, "With all due respect, you are a stranger. My will is not your business. My granddaughter is." Mia stormed off, and I heard a door slam. Jason followed her. I offered to leave too, because I felt weird being there, but Grandma squeezed my hand under the table. "Stay." My mom turned on me then. "You're just sitting there, letting this happen?" I said, "What do you want me to do? Tell her no? I didn't ask for this." To be clear, I hadn't. I didn't even know she had that much saved, honestly. I always thought she was just getting by. I knew she owned her house, that was it. Grandma said to my parents, "You made your choice when you told me my granddaughter was not welcome because he doesn't like her." She pointed at Jason's empty chair. "So I made mine." We left not long after. I drove Grandma home, and in the car she was quiet. Then she sighed and said, "I know this will cause trouble, But I'm tired. Tired of pretending that unkindness is okay because it's family. So yeah, that's how that went. Here's the kicker. That same night, Mia texted me. Just, I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. The next day, my cousin, who was at the party, messaged me. Oh wow, Jason dumped Mia. Apparently, after the Will situation, they had a big fight. He told her he wasn't signing up for this level of drama, that my family was toxic, and he didn't want to be tied to someone whose grandma hates him. Then he went home with his overnight bag and blocked her on everything. From what I heard, he also made a comment about not wanting to waste years with someone who's not bringing anything to the table financially if there's no inheritance. Which, yikes, but also mask off. My parents are now in full panic mode. They keep calling grandma, trying to get her to reconsider while she's still clear-headed. She tells them, my head has never been clearer. They also keep texting me saying things like, you're driving a wedge in the family, and you're manipulating her. All I've done since we got back is go to work, send grandma funny TikToks, and answer her tech questions. To be clear, I don't feel triumphant. This isn't some cool revenge movie moment. It feels sad and messy and heavy. I didn't want her money. I wanted her to have one birthday where she felt chosen. She's the one who decided that choosing her should actually matter. So yeah, that's where things stand. Comments. Comment 1. Honestly, your family treated you like an expendable extra until there were dollars attached to your relationship with your grandma. They uninvited you over a boyfriend's vibes, then hosted a sad party without the actual birthday girl. That's not normal or loving behavior. They're mad now because the favoritism suddenly came with consequences. Comment 2. I'm curious, did your grandma ever hint before Paris that she might change her will? Or mention leaving you the house/savings? And do you know roughly how much we're talking about here? Not asking for exact numbers, just wondering if your parents always assumed they were inheriting everything and built their plans around it. Comment 3. Practical advice. Document everything. Save text from your parents. Keep copies of any legal paperwork grandma is comfortable sharing, and encourage her to talk to her lawyer about protecting herself from pressure. Consider going low contact with your parents until they stop treating you like the villain. And maybe suggest grandma set up a POA and healthcare proxy with someone she actually trusts, you or a neutral third party. Comment 4. As someone who was the unseen kid while my sibling and their partner could do no wrong, this hit hard. The way they dismissed you as negative just for having boundaries is so familiar. I'm really glad your grandma saw you and chose you back in such a concrete way. It sucks that money is involved, but honestly, it sounds like she's finally aligning her will with how she's felt for years. Comment 5. You might want to suggest that grandma send a polite, short group email summarizing the will change, stating it's final, and that any harassment will just confirm she made the right choice. That way there's a paper trail that this was her decision. And for your own sanity, keep visits with her calm and normal so her last years aren't just full of arguments about who gets what. Update. A few things have happened since I first wrote this. First, I sat down with grandma and told her about my parents' texts accusing me of manipulating her. I kept it factual, just showed her the messages. She got this very tired look and said, then they can talk to my lawyer, not to you. She called his office while I was there and booked another appointment to make sure everything was solid. At that appointment, she asked him about protections. He recommended she put in writing that she was of sound mind at the time of the changes and add a no contest clause. He also suggested she appoint a trusted friend as backup executor in case my parents tried to interfere with me later. She chose her neighbor, a retired teacher who's sharp as a tack. Second, my parents did try one more big guilt call with me. My mom cried about losing Mia's future now that Jason is gone and said if I really loved my sister, I'd convince grandma to spread things more fairly. I told her, I'm not talking to you about grandma's money again. That's between her and her lawyer. If you want to talk about something else, I'm here. She hung up. Mia sent a longer text a few days later. It was half anger, half hurt. She said she felt like I stole grandma from her and that I was always trying to prove I loved grandma more. She also admitted Jason said some pretty nasty things about me after the Will thing, which she now realizes were red flags, but she's still lashing out. I replied that I'm sorry she's hurting, but I'm not going to apologize for taking grandma to Paris or for grandma's decisions about her own things. She left me on read. Third, I talked to grandma about whether she was sure about leaving me the house. I told her honestly that I can't afford the property taxes on my current salary and that if, when she passes, I might have to sell it or rent it out. She actually smiled and said, "Good. A house should help you live, not become another chain around your ankle. So there's no expectation I keep it as some shrine." Finally, in terms of my day-to-day life, nothing dramatic has changed. I'm still in my little apartment, still at the same job. The inheritance is all theoretical and honestly kind of abstract. What has changed is how I show up at family things. I skipped my dad's birthday dinner last week. I sent a card and a small gift via grandma and told him I hope he had a good day, but I'm not going to sit at a table where everyone pretends they didn't uninvite me from grandma's birthday and then freak out when it backfired. Right now, my focus is pretty simple: make grandma's current life good. I can't fix 27 years of being the extra kid in my parents' eyes, and I can't fix me as choice in men. What I can do is take grandma to her favorite diner on Tuesdays, help her organize her old photos, and show up when she calls. I'm not contacting Jason. I'm not begging my parents to like me. I'm not arguing about the will. I'm just staying in my lane, with the one person in this whole mess who has consistently chosen me back. This story isn't about inheritance. It's about a lifetime of being invisible finally coming into sharp focus, and the family that resented the light. What makes this narrative so quietly devastating is its ordinariness. There's no abuse, no screaming matches, just the slow, steady erasure of a child who didn't fit the family's preferred narrative. The serious daughter, the one who liked the library instead of cheerleading, the one whose love language was showing up, not performing. Her parents didn't hate her. They just forgot to see her. And that might be worse. Notice the architecture of favoritism. When Mia wanted something, everyone pivoted. When the narrator took grandma to Paris, a trip she saved for, planned for, dreamed about, her own parents uninvited her from the birthday party because a boyfriend of 1 year didn't feel comfortable around her. Let that sit. A stranger's comfort mattered more than their daughter's presence. The cruelty wasn't the disinheritance drama. It was the casual dismissal that came before. "Don't be so sensitive. You're always so negative." These are the words families use when they want you to shrink so they don't have to examine their own behavior. Grandma's will change wasn't revenge. It was clarity. She looked at who celebrated her life versus who threw themselves a party with her name on the cake, and she made her decision accordingly. The narrator didn't manipulate her. She simply loved her consistently, without agenda, for years. The real tragedy? The family only valued that love when money entered the equation. Jason's departure is the perfect coda. He wasn't there for Mia. He was there for proximity to resources. When the inheritance evaporated, so did he. The parents enabled a man who saw their daughter as a financial strategy, then blamed the negative sister when it collapsed. The lesson is sharp. Consistency reveals character. Crisis reveals priority. The narrator showed up for doctor's appointments and grocery runs when there was no audience, no inheritance, no reward. Her parents showed up for photo ops. Grandma simply aligned her estate with the reality she'd been living for years. This isn't a story about winning. It's about finally being chosen by the one person who always saw you and refusing to apologize for it.